Ja Morant. But what wasn't good is, when you make small errors or mistakes and things start to get out there a little bit, it just people have so much to say, and apparently, the man Ja went on his IG live this morning or whatever, and what people are reporting. In fact, let's let Ilo tell us about this situation, because I'm curious to see where you go with this, Plex. But Ilo, let us know, like, what are the details of this again? This story surrounding Ja Morant.
Well, overnight, Ja Morant went on his own Instagram Live from a club. How can I put this delicately? There were women frolicking in the background, and they were, how can I again put this delicately?
Stripping?
Out of uniform.
Okay.
So it conceivably could have been a gentleman's club.
So you mean they were in uniform?
That's the best way to put it.
They were out of uniform.
You mean they were in uniform?
Oh,
Nuggets.
got it. Yes.
What you're saying is they were in uniform, just not the regular everyday uniform.
I'm afraid I didn't catch your single entendre there at first. Very, very clever. And anyway, he briefly brandished what appeared to be a small gun, lifting it up to the camera as part of the stream on his own Instagram Live. Now, again, for context, earlier this week there was a big article published by the Washington Post reporting that he'd been accused in police reports of last summer flashing a gun at a 17-year-old at his house, and then in a separate incident threatening a security official at a mall. And as you also might recall, a couple of weeks ago, it was reported that one of his associates flashed a laser light at the team bus of the Indiana Pacers. But again, this is all from what happened overnight that Ja Morant posted on his own Instagram Live that right now is the #1 trending Twitter topic in America.
Thanks, Ilo. I'll first start off by saying it's interesting that Ja has warranted so much discussion around this topic. It just seems to be so many former athletes that are in media, from Shannon Sharp. I think we've even heard Marcellus Wiley touch on this topic. There have been so many people that have weighed in on Ja Morant and basically saying you ain't about that life and all kinds of different things like that. You got one more thing, Alan?
Yeah, hey, LeVar. This just coming down from an NBA spokesperson.
Okay, perfect.
The spokesperson just posted, quote, "We are aware of a social media post involving Ja Morant and are investigating," unquote. So it's rising all the way up to the league office level now.
There you go. Well, I guess where I'm getting at, Plex, is, listen, we came up during the era of time where we looked at a dude like Bubba Chuck, and to those who don't know who Bubba Chuck is also otherwise known as Allen Iverson. That became a trend, trying to imitate and emulate how Allen Iverson was. But I don't ever recall AI ever flaunting being a dude that showed and flashed straps or anything like that. It was more so about the culture, like wearing jewelry or wearing long jerseys and your hat and braids and tattoos.
Let me jump in there.
Come on, let me hear what you're feeling.
Man, you know what? I've been all around the country speaking on this. Everybody knows, my situation and, what happened and, what took place. And it's not illegal to, carry a gun or I don't know what state he was in or whatever the case may be. But, it's just not worth it, man. You look at Ja, and he is basically one of the faces of the future of the NBA. He's a $200-300 million man walking around, and to have, this stigma and some of his actions start to pile on, and for him to be receiving and, getting all of this kind of, speculation of what kind of person that he is. I don't believe he's that kind of person. I believe that maybe people are pushing him a little bit to the point to where he has to act a certain way, which is pretty much predicated around the people that you grow up with and what community you come from and the people that you hang around. And I look at my situation and what I went through, and basically, taking down a Hall of Fame career. And looking back at it, I was a young man that made a poor decision. And it's not one day that it doesn't cross my mind, but I kind of take those situations that I've been through in life and just try to elevate myself to the highest person that I can be. Now that I'm 45 years old, and I would say to Ja, if you can't learn from anybody, learn from me. And he's a Hall of Fame player without a doubt, and he can be one of the truly special generational talents that we have ever seen, that this game has ever seen. And don't let situations like this, follow you throughout your career and as a person, because I believe he's a great person. I've heard nothing but great things about how he treats his teammates and how he interacts with his fans, and how teachable he is to his coach, and he's just always taking in information, and he's never one of those guys. He doesn't boast about how good he is a player. And he just wants to continue to get better, and I think that's what we all want to see, and we want to see him mature as a person as he gets older, the way his game is growing, right in front of us. And I would just say to him, man, just get out there and just go play basketball. Leave all those things behind, because trust me, things like this can alter and your legacy, and it only takes one bad decision or one bad moment to tear what you built.
Yeah.
From the time that you started dribbling the basketball to tear it all down. And like I would tell him, man, if you can't, relate or learn from anything, take it from me.
Plex, let me ask you this. I know we're up on the break, but I don't want to let this one get away, because, I mean, that's a lot of people may not remember what the situation was you're referencing as it applied to you. I always, in my mind, I always felt like if I gotta carry a strap to where I'm going, I don't need to be there. But in some instances, people, I mean, obviously it's your right to bear arms.
Right.
And with that being said, but there are rules. And in your situation in particular, I mean, the rules were broken. And I'm wondering, and I'm curious, what would the advice be if he's saying, you know what, like if it turns out that it was a gun, or these reports of him, brandishing arms on people and stuff like that, where, another thing where I came from, one thing I learned from my old heads was, if you have a strap on you, if you're pulling that strap, you better be using it. That's what I was taught in the culture I grew up in. Now, that might be toxic culture, but that's the bottom line is, if you pulling something out, you better be ready to throw down with what it is that you're doing. Like, it's not an accessory.
Right.
This isn't a fashion show. What, from your perspective, can you just kind of shed a little bit more light on what it was that you did go through, and what that, what the mindset or the thought process you had that maybe he needs to, like you're saying, he needs to look at it differently or approach it differently?
Man, myself, just the decision that I made, just being ignorant to the rules and not knowing and understanding the laws, came with carrying a firearm. That was my first mistake, and to be in that mindset, you really have to, you know, go and sit down and say to yourself, what, put me in that mindset to go out and carry that firearm or whatever it may be. And for him, I can't believe that he would go on social media live and do something of that sort. Maybe I've seen people go live and not know that they're live, but that's the thing that's going on now with social media. Everything happens so fast, and when it happens, you can't get it back. But to be who he is as an athlete and as a person, and what he has, looking forward, I would think that his father, who was his trainer, every year since he was 5 or 6 years old, Ja has never had another trainer and a mentor other than his father. He continues to train him. I believe and I know that his father will pull him to the side and have a real conversation with him about, we made it out of our situation.
So why are you still acting like we in it?
Right. And I can say that his father didn't raise him that way. How many of us, grew up with fathers in our life, and he is one of the lucky ones to have a father in his life since he was young, and to be with him and train him and to see him be the NBA star that he is today. So I believe that his father will have a sit-down conversation with him and just tell him, listen, this is not the road that we want to go down coming where we come from, and I don't believe that he was raised that way either.
I sure hope not. Listen, I played with the late, great Sean Taylor, man, and all I know is if you running in the fast lane of those situations and you're interacting with that and in some way, somehow the roads are intersecting with that element, it finds you. It finds you. And let me tell you something. The finality of how we lost Sean still burns to this day. It stings. It's still unbelievable to this day. Ja, if I could give you any personal advice from me and someone who experienced losing a loved one and a teammate in S-Dot, bruh, like, stop putting that signal out there, because that signal is going to be received by somebody, and let me tell you something. When it pops off, there's no getting you back. And now everybody that has loved you, everybody who has been around you, everyone who has believed in you, from your dad to anybody else that has been a part of your life and has been a part, all the fans that are a part of your success, my guy, we don't get you back. And that's something that people have to live with. Some people have to live with that for the rest of their lives, man. Like, leave that stuff alone.
And you would expect, after something like this happens, that his support system, or whoever those guys are, his high school coach, college coach, they are best trying to get in contact with him to speak some realness to him and to let him understand, what road he's barking down, because I don't believe he's that kind of person, and you would expect for somebody to come out and really talk to the young man.
I sure hope so, because to not be that person, but to put that person out there for consumption, you already know how that it doesn't end well. And Ja, that just doesn't need to be what your legacy ends up being. Like, oh, he could have been one of the greatest ever if this hadn't happened. You just don't want that to be your thing, and you certainly don't want to be pulling that towards you with the things that you're doing. So shots out to you, man. I really do, from us, we really do hope that you correct that that detail and choose a different direction.